In continuation of my card content breakdown video, it's finally time for the Tempest Martial Tournament, the episode that everyone has been waiting for. However, there were some aspects from the fights that were removed, such as the shortened fight between Gobta and Lion-Mask, along with the later fight that involved Gobta and Lion-Mask as well. That's why in today's video, I'll be talking about the various fights that occurred and provide a breakdown on why the episode did an amazing job in making people annoyed at Masayuki Honjou, along with sharing some removed context on characters and the Tempest Federation itself. As usual, a spoiler warning if you haven't watched the episode yet or might find the information I mentioned in the video to be spoilers. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and share with your friends. Now then, the recent episode 21 is called the Battle Tournament and it mainly covers the storyline found in chapter 3 of the volume 9 light novel, although it does bring back some of the points from the first interlude chapter that was initially skipped over back in episode 19. So in the first interlude chapter, Rumpai revealed how he came up with the idea of the Big Four, or also known as the Four Heavenly Kings, simply as a means to prevent Benimaru, Diablo and Shion from competing in the Martial Tournament, which was shown in the episode, but there were actually more to this sequence. For instance, Rumpai also prevented Solway from participating by giving him another made-up title, which is Chief Intelligence Officer, and put him in charge of the Dark Shadow. Aside from that, because there was still a slot left in the Big Four, Rumpai decided to give it to his remaining subordinates who he deemed qualified, but since Hakuro, Riga and Gaburu were busy, they declined to participate. And Best Doggo Ranga volunteered as well, but Rumpai prohibited him from taking part because it was a competition of martial prowess, so it wouldn't be fair for the contestants. That's why Rumpai ultimately chose to have Gobta and Gobta participate as the representative fighters of the Tempest Federation, although Ranga did secretly join later in the episode. On a side note, do you prefer the name Big Four or Four Heavenly Kings? Feel free to leave your opinions on this in the comments down below, although I personally found the latter to sound more impressive than the former. In any case, going back to the tournament, there were actually a few points from the light novel involving Rumpai providing a detailed look at the structure of the Colosseum, which were not adapted into the anime, so to explain. He described the building to have a capacity of 50,000 people, and it was based on the Roman Colosseum with some extra decorations to make it feel more intimidating. He also stated how the stage area itself was made of compressed and magically reinforced stone slabs that allows it to resist even the might of nuclear magic, or in this case, is capable of withstanding the power of at least Special A individuals. In addition to that, the area was protected by a powerful double barrier that not only protected the Colosseum itself from being damaged by fights, but it was able to prevent the audience from being impacted by skills or intense magic use from the stage area as well. Furthermore, when Rumpai introduced the jam projection screens in the episode, he stated in the light novel how he planned on selling this device to other nations in the future, so the Martial Tournament was simply advertising, but he was reprimanded by King Gazer afterwards for revealing the projection screens in such a fashion, because aside from entertainment, it had a lot of military applications as well. With that said, Sokka will begin with the introduction of the participants, and she was serving as the host of the Martial Tournament while Diablo was acting as the referee. And you can clearly tell the voice actress was having a blast here. She managed to really bring out the energy and hype that was described in the light novel for the introduction sequence of the main participants. So to start, for Masayuki's introduction, he went accordingly with the light novel, although some minor points in regards to Rumai's internalized thoughts on him were not depicted in the episode, such as Rumai suspecting that Masayuki might actually be faking his success and he couldn't understand why he was still so popular. And the anime did well to convey this manufactured popularity by showing Hinata, Chloe along with Rumai's subordinates being the only ones who were skeptical about Masayuki, while the crowd was still cheering for him. Also, Rumai pointed out how Sokka was quite devious for intentionally hyping up Masayuki in the light novel, so that if he loses the tournament, it will have greater damage on his reputation, although with his unique skill Chosen One, it will likely be quite difficult. Nonetheless, Sokka proceeded to introduce Jinrai, who was the one that helped Masayuki qualify to the main event, and then Guy, one of the most hated characters introduced during the Founders Festival arc, but both of their introduction sequences in the episode were the same as the light novel. Next, it will be the introduction of Goza and Meza, who are participating because in the light novel, Solway explained to Rumpai how they both made a bet that whoever wins the title of Big Four, the loser will have to be stuck serving as the floor 50 boss of the labyrinth. Additionally, Rumpai providing some insight on Goza and Meza after they received names from him were not adapted into the episode, but essentially, they both evolved into a Demon Ox and Demon Horse respectively, although Goza became specialized in physical attacks while Meza became specialized in magical attacks. And Wisdom King Raphael apparently gave them both the unique skill limiter, which is a degraded version of unlimited imprisonment and spatial domination, giving them the ability to drag weaker opponents into a virtual space controlled by them, a bit similar to domain expansion but less powerful. Moving on, when Lion-Mask and Totally Not Carrion was introduced, much of his sequence would follow the light novel, but the episode did leave out the part where Sobe again explained to Rimuru how Carrion was able to take down the 3 Daigyu sons during the elimination round, which earned him the adoration and respect from the crowd, and it's a nice detail to have Tish cheering for him as a way to portray this aspect. Also, this wasn't mentioned in the episode as well, but Million was apparently absent for the tournament because she was busy helping Vaudra and Ramos make some final adjustments to the labyrinth. That's why Million left a message for Totally Not Carrion through Sokka. With the 6 participants introduced for the main event, it was time for the introduction of Gobta and Gelt, which pretty much occurred in a similar fashion to the light novel, although I did find the detail of Raphael constantly trying to say something about Gobta, but then keeping quiet to be quite funny because you find out in the next episode what she did. But continuing on, having finished with the introduction, it was time for Rumuru to give the opening speech, and the episode version was actually shortened by a fair bit. It only included the parts where Rumuru states that he'll give his subordinates who are participating in the final position of the Big Four if they win, along with granting Masayuki the chance to fight him. As for the points that were removed, Rumuru had actually interacted with each of the challengers in the light novel, starting with Gozen and Mazer, who he ordered to put on a good show for the audience to further hype up the labyrinth. Then he talked to Jinrai and asked if he wishes to request for a reward if he somehow wins, but he simply dismisses Rumuru's kind gesture, although he still decides to give Jinrai some high-grade equipment since Team Lightspeed helped to advertise the Martial Tournament. Following Jinrai, it was Guy who wanted to challenge Rumuru as well, but because of his rude behavior, Diablo stepped in and offered to fight him first before he could even earn the chance to fight Rumuru. And this was how Rumuru discovered a new way of deflecting aggression from people like Guy. Just used the Big Four as an excuse, so it was unfortunate we couldn't see this interaction in the episode, since it adds some interesting world building to the story. But I digress. When Rumuru approaches Totally Not Carrion, he simply asks him to show some restraint since he was still an ex-Demon Lord, and for Gobta, Rumuru had very little faith that he would do well, so he simply gave some sarcastic words of encouragement while giving Gelt a genuine one. Gobta even complained about the preferential treatment. Having said that, for the draws, what you see in the episode will simply follow the light novel, and Masayuki's unique skill Chosen One definitely influenced the outcome of the pairings, so Rumuru wasn't wrong when he said that Masayuki somehow manipulated destiny. Either way, the first match was between Gozen and Mazer, but apart from some minor trash talking, the entire fight would happen according to the light novel, although I was surprised how gory and brutal it was since the anime has never shown this much violence before, which definitely made the entire sequence more enjoyable and it was visually impressive as well. The second match would be nothing special because Jinrai simply resigned to give Masayuki the win, and it was funny how people were still celebrating like it was an actual win. Now in the third round, it was Gobta against Guy and the entire fight was the same as the light novel, although it was commendable that despite running away from Guy the entire time, Gobta was still easily dodging all his attacks, and Shion actually pointed out in the light novel how he was intentionally keeping Gobta from stepping outside the boundary. That's why she said that Guy's methods were disgusting in the episode. However, when Rumuru offered Gobta a reward, he immediately changed his attitude and proceeded to summon his direwolf partner, but as seen in the episode, the one who came out was Ranga. And what made this entire sequence funnier was how Diablo was obviously biased, since he approves of Gobta's win despite knowing that having Best Doggo help him was unfair. Even Rumuru questioned this in the light novel, but he ultimately chose to ignore the matter since Guy was super rude. That said, in the fourth match, it was Gelt vs Lion-Mask, definitely not Carrion, and even though the anime version looked good, it still lacked some of the intensity that was portrayed in the light novel. For instance, their fight was described to be an all-out physical brawl with Lion-Mask constantly on the offensive with various types of kicks and punches, while Gelt was simply forced to defend, occasionally countering with his own attacks. And apparently this lasted for over 30 minutes before reaching the point in the episode where Lion-Mask questioned why Gelt still hasn't used any skills, and honestly, respect for Papa Gelt. He intentionally chose to fight with the same handicap as Lion-Mask, so after Totally Not Carrion acknowledges the strength of Gelt, he ended the battle with Lion Cannon Fist, and I love the detail of having Diablo supporting Gelt from falling. That was such a super wholesome gesture. With the quarterfinals ended, it was time for the semi-finals, and Masayuki's fight against Gozer would be the first match, but somehow, just like you see in the episode, he was able to convince Gozer to forfeit the match through nothing but his words. And I've seen many people online complaining about Masayuki, completely not understanding what his character is meant to represent, is to show you how ridiculous the plot armor trope is, but also serving as a way to prime everyone's opinions on him, to then subvert everyone's expectations in the future. So if you're one of the people who got angered by his behavior, then Fuse did an amazing job at writing his character. Nevertheless, much of their interaction here did follow the light novel, so there's nothing to really explain. Although Rimuru was complaining how crazy it was that the crowd was cheering for Masayuki and seemed to regard his actions as noble, despite his behavior being quite cowardly, and it's obvious he was simply bluffing about wanting to fight Gobta at his full strength. That's why Rimuru can only rely on the last match of the day between Lion-Mask and Gobta. He knew that totally not Carrion would be the winner, so he was still satisfied that someone strong can help him gauge Masayuki's strength. However, Rimuru does mention in the light novel how he still wanted to cheer for Gobta because having Ranga help might at least make it possible for them to defeat Lion-Mask unless he decides to get serious. Once the battle started, Gobta would simply be dodging while Ranga did all the fighting, and the crowd was actually impressed by the performance of the best doggo in the light novel. They even started to cheer for him, and some were laughing at Gobta for not even trying. But I have to say, the anime did well to demonstrate Gobta's cunning nature, as he not only abused the rule of allowing summons to step outside the boundary, even had Ranga purposely target the mask of totally not Carrion, knowing that he doesn't want to reveal himself. And yes, even though it's an absolutely scummy way to fight, but Gobta wasn't wrong when he stated that as long as you win, it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong. Also, it was hilarious how the otherworlded children and Hinata were judging Rimuru when Gobta reveals that he was the one who taught him this philosophy. Although in the light novel, the crowd reacted much worse after hearing about this, as they collectively started to talk about how Rimuru was a terrifying demon lord that manipulates his subordinates and teaches them to behave in such a dirty manner. Regardless, totally not Carrion ultimately forfeited the match just like in the episode, because he couldn't fight Gobta and Ranga without revealing himself, so they were declared the winners and they'll be facing Masayuki in the finals. But Rimuru briefly met with them both following the match to scold Ranga for disobeying his orders, and warned them about the unknown dangers that Masayuki might pose in the finals, and how important it was for them to expose as much information about the chosen hero as possible. Anyways, during the dinner sequence in the episode, Rimuru was supposed to be present in the light novel eating alongside the otherworlded children as he listened to their opinions about the matches. Furthermore, when Hinata asked if Rimuru actually plans on fighting Masayuki, the children even had a discussion on who was stronger, with Alice and Kenya defending the hero, while Gail, Ryota and Chloe supported Rimuru. Hinata would then share her opinions on Masayuki, and even though she wasn't able to gauge his true strength, she was still confident about defeating him in battle in spite of this unknown factor. There was also a funny sequence in the light novel where Rimuru became jealous how the children unanimously agreed that Hinata was stronger than Masayuki, while they were skeptical about him earlier, so Rimuru gave an offhanded remark about her, which actually triggered her although he manages to calm her down. Nonetheless, the rest of the sequence in the episode of Rimuru discussing with Hinata, and then his own subordinates about Gobta's chances against Masayuki would happen in a similar fashion with the light novel. And the only noteworthy aspect to point out is that there would be a third interlude chapter which involves Rimuru and his subordinates meeting with King Gazer to discuss about the gold coins they need to pay off the merchants. However, I'm guessing the ending of the episode meant that they'll include this section in the upcoming episode, so I'll avoid talking about it for now and go over it in my next video. But yeah, episode 21 has been amazing to watch, and the Tempest Martial Tournament definitely did not disappoint, although I would have liked if the anime made Gal's fight with Carrion a bit more interesting. Regardless, what were your favorite fights or moments from this particular episode? Feel free to share your thoughts down below, and be sure to check out my other card content videos as well. Also, if you enjoyed this card content video, remember to leave a like, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button for more card content videos as well. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.